What's the most cringe-worthy approval-seeking behavior you've ever seen? A good friend's sister was not getting enough attention during my friend's wedding and decided to start crying loudly during the ceremony to a point where the bride and friends had to go and comfort her. My friend said this was completely normal behavior when she is not the center of attention. Edit 1. The most frequently asked question is how old this person was. She was about 22, 24-ish. Edit 2. The second most frequent comment is about how there has to be something mentally wrong with this girl. She is not diagnosed, but just being around her for a few parties and random events, I do believe that there is something wrong with her head. Or it's just that she's the youngest of the siblings and she's been babied by her parents her whole life. Edit 3. For the people saying I would not have invited her, or I would have just kicked her out of my wedding. I'm guessing you either had a great experience with your wedding, congrats, or you never had a wedding. Because family drama is usually the #1 drama starter for any wedding, and most people need to consider all the future ramifications before not inviting or kicking out a close family member. A while ago, someone I know made a big show on Facebook that they were pregnant with a new boyfriend that they had only just met. The announcement was a photo of the pregnancy test and she must have been like only a couple of weeks or whatever. This was after she had status up saying that they were trying, and everyone was commenting saying you just met the guy, isn't it too fast? A week later, after announcing she was pregnant, it turned out she wasn't pregnant. Phantom pregnancy, incorrect results on test, or very early miscarriage. So she put this status up saying that she was devastated and that she'll never forget Rose and that she loved Rose and that she can't be replaced. No one commented, liked, reacted or anything. Every day for about 2 weeks she kept resharing her status looking for sympathy and no one gave a fuck. Scary that such immature behavior can come out of a 25-year-old. I have a friend that has been engaged, with ring and sheet included, with every boyfriend that she has ever had. Every year she gets a new boyfriend, and every year she makes a big show and announcement of her engagement on Facebook followed by dozens of pictures of her with the new guy calling him hubby, and talking about the married life, and how she feels like she was already married to him. A few months will go by, and then we lose track of the guy and her on Facebook, and then out of the blue another one appears, and is the same cycle all over again. I swear to God this woman looks like she just likes to collect engagement rings and it's pulling one hell of a prank on all these idiots. No lie, I've seen already 5 engagements, never a single actual marriage date, and always feel sad for every boyfriend that comes along. She also completely adopts the personality of the guy she's currently with. If the guy is a surfer she will become a bleached blonde surfer. If he's a DJ she will also start DJing and talk non-stop about music. If the guy happens to be Russian she will start posting shit in Russian. The current one is a tattoo artist and she's now a pin-up type of girl. I used to receive $20 each week for school lunches. We'd run up this rather long path to the strip mall, Subway, 7-Eleven, grocery store, etc. and have lunch each Wednesday/Friday. Being a rather skinny kid who couldn't possibly consume $20 worth of food, would use more than half of it to treat my friends. I like the instant praise I received when I would buy them a Slurpee or snack. However, I didn't really hang out with anybody after school or get invited to big parties. I was just a rich kid in a pool of leeches. Kids would approach me and ask me to spot them $2, which I happily did, only to $180, and ignore me shortly after. I knew that we weren't all truly friends, but I did, because for that 30-minute session each week I felt accepted. Now I'm in my 20s, realizing I lost a few $100s in middle school because I wanted to belong. Edit. Highest post is me cheating on my 13-year-old self. Thanks Reddit. Also thanks for all the comments to read through this morning. I understand it could been worse, dealing and all, so I'm glad it was only a few $100s. Just looking back on those days makes me cringe every time, so I thought I'd share. 2 of my dearest friends just had their first baby. These 2 people are the most wonderful people I've ever met. Everyone they love always comes first, and they do everything and anything they can to help, should you need it. She was in labor for almost 40 hours, Had a bunch of complications and we were honestly worried for her safety. When her sister arrived at the hospital, 30 plus hours into labor, she walked toward the birthing room, collapsed in the doorway, and had herself a pretty little panic attack on the floor in full fetal position. For no goddamn reason. So my dear friend had to force herself to be strong for her ailing sister, while she was still in active labor. This was in November, and I still want to punch that woman's face. Edit. For those of you stuck, it wasn't a true panic attack. She has a long history of faking them in situations like this, because everything should always be about her. While I want to assume she was flipping out over the worry for her sister's health in the situation, crying on the floor like a child is not the way an adult should be handling it. She was successful in her plight for the attention and it's disgusting. Alright, this is pretty bad. I have a friend who is pretending to go to college. He is from the Bronx, but lives in my friend's apartment. Even worse, he was kicked out by the landlady, but is staying, since my friends kinda felt bad about what he would do, and where he would go. He constantly sleeps in, and says class is cancelled, but we recently logging into his school account on his laptop, and he is officially not a registered student. He constantly says he acing all of his classes, he even leaves the house, to go to his internship for school, even though you have to be a registered student for that very program. He actually works nights, posts it on Snapchat stories and cheat, and always says how hard it is balancing everything, on top of going for a master's degree. It's pretty insane. So he is basically lying to his friends and family about going to school, and wasting money on rent, and traveling to and from Manhattan all to promote a farce. My cousin has a 7-year-old, and it would be an understatement to say that this kid is not the best and the brightest. Same goes for my cousin. You know the type, she's always putting up a front trying to sound intelligent, posting pseudo-scientific articles on Facebook and loudly bragging about what a huge atheist she is, and what a big nerd she is, and how much she reads etc. Recently she has started taking her kid into bookstores and posing him with different books like textbooks way beyond the reading level of a 7-year-old, then taking a picture to post to Facebook with a caption like Anthony picked this advanced quantum theory book up all by himself and won't let me take it away from him. My boy is so smart. It's too bad, because in reality he has a serious eye problem that makes it so he can't read and probably needs to be in special ed for some learning disabilities. She's doing him no favors, but would rather put on a social media show than be a parent. A girl who I, admittedly, strung along for a bit too long after I got out of a very serious relationship fabricated a story that she'd been diagnosed with terminal ovarian cancer and that it was now or never with her. Little inconsistencies in her stories. I'm studying medicine alerted me almost immediately, but I didn't call her out just in case I was overanalyzing, in which case I would have looked like Austin Powers when he mistakenly outs Basil's mother as a man. When I started talking to her more, I'd moved a few hours away for my studies. She was miraculously declared cancer-free within days. Remember, it was terminal. I should have stopped talking to her then, but I decided to, once again, give her the benefit of the doubt. Every time I would go some amount of time without acknowledging her, the cancer would return, and she'd be once again near death. It was really quite pathetic, and I had no idea how to deal with it. I decided to keep her friends, some of whom were my friends, out of it until I let it slip at mutual friend's wedding, whereupon her closest friend overheard and looked absolutely appalled by the scope of the lie. She confirmed that the girl did not, in fact, ever have cancer. She unfriended me on Facebook shortly thereafter and sent me some rather nonsensical message about how it just wasn't going to work between us and she needed to move on. Since then I have stumbled upon numerous other significant fabrications, not exaggerations, she'd told me throughout the time I'd known her. The whole thing was very bizarre and taught me to trust my intuition when it comes to a person's intentions or integrity. Went out to my friend's stag do bachelor party for the colonials. This dick who was his gym friend came along. Was a bit up himself, but didn't come across as the dick I now know him to be, until we came to the meal. We were going to Steak & Co in London. Perfectly nice place, perhaps a little pricey. The guy stopped outside and said, "We are going in there?" We said, yeah. Why? He said, "Oh, I don't rate steak and co." He then walked off and completely left. What an absolute asshole. Even if he doesn't particularly like it, this is his friend's stag do. You faking put up with it for your friend. Also he was faking loaded, so nothing to do with money. Absolute T-what. And he didn't show at the wedding. Probably for the best. I had this girl I was friends with in high school. Her and my roommate were dating, and she was extremely clingy to the point where she would grab him and wouldn't let go. I remember one time he was in a car accident, and he had to junk his totaled car. The entire time he was trying to talk to the junker, she was bear hugging him from behind, and he actually had to say, "Babe, I know you're concerned, but please back off." She would call him several times a day, and if he didn't answer she would come over immediately. Well, he moved to a different city, and she joins the Marines. Before I continue this story, let me say I have the utmost respect for the men and women in the armed services. Well, her plan was to move in with him, and they were fine, until he dumped her. Now I thought she was crazy before. She was put in the hospital for psychiatric evaluation, and is apparently being discharged any day now. She faked a pregnancy, then told him the baby miscarried. Then the baby was alive again, but miscarried, and she called him non-stop. He tried to ignore her, but he came down to visit, and she started messaging me. Have him call me. Tell him it's important. Etc, etc. It got to the point where I had to tell her to piss off. Well, she realized the whole pregnancy thing won't get his attention. She logged onto her Facebook as one of her friends and posted a status saying that she was missing and her friends couldn't find her, and her co had no idea where she was. After about 12 hours of supposedly being missing, she said the police were called, and she even made herself a missing persons poster. This didn't get his attention either. So she ended that charade with, "OMG guys, I lie all so much. I wasn't missing though. My co sent me to do." I'm pretty sure it was this point she lost all credibility. No one in my group believes anything she does anymore. My father got married to a dumb slut of a crone less than a year after my mum died. Not many on my mother's side of the family like her, due to the fact that she's rude, an alcoholic, and acts like a half-witted, spoiled brat. My brother and I included. Now I'm not on Facebook. My account has not been active since my mum died because I have no reason to log on Facebook anymore. I only did it to play Candy Crush with her. But I digress. According to my brother, they posted several statuses about it before updating their relationship, which was okay, I guess. Whatever makes them happy, I suppose. But then my father approached me and was like, "You know, our entire family have liked me and hag statuses about us getting married, and all of them has asked why you and your brother didn't do it. You should log on and do it. Beach, I baked the two of you a faking cake and bought you a goddamned gift. Is that not enough? Also stop lying. I checked. Not even 3 people from my mother's family liked it, and I can assure you that they definitely couldn't give a flying fuck about that cheap T-what, even if their life depended on it." My last roommate and best friend before my boyfriend and I decided to live the fuck alone, you'll see why, was a narcissistic nutjob from a small town in the south, where she was the only one to leave and come to college, where she obviously didn't get the same level of attention for her beauty or intelligence, or whatever as at home. So the following went down: lived together for 2 years. During which time she proudly and loudly had unprotected sex all over our house with literally any random man she found at the bar, which got up to like 200 dudes. Told me in Feb that she hadn't paid rent since separate leases, and our dementia-addled landlord finally noticed, so she's running away to Brazil forever. A couple weeks later she barges into my room to tell me she's engaged and shows me a ring that is literally verified from Walmart, but she insists is a family heirloom. Who is she engaged to, since she's been faking randos this whole time? This guy Eric, her best gay friend who moved to Texas like 4 years ago. The engagement is a scam to get attention and money from family and friends, she openly tells me. Throws an engagement party for herself at our favorite bar, throws 3 separate going away parties for herself, 2 of which were at our house, that got my stuff ruined, and the police called, owes me $900, keeps promising to pay, but leaves for Brazil forever several days early to avoid me, sends all her creditors to our house looking to collect on the $25,000 in debt she racked up, not including student loans. Gave thousands of dollars of electronics to random men she faked in an orgy before she left, and sent them all to my house for non-existent power cords and accessories to show that she could have compensated me, but didn't want to because I didn't approve of the engagement scam. Runs out of money in Brazil, and is back within a week. Comes back to our town and literally runs away from me whenever I see her in public. Runs out of money here too. And I told her creditors where to find her, so they'd stop bothering / ambushing me, so she somehow gets gay Eric to let her live with him in Texas. Okay, so this is crazy, right? I haven't even gotten to the crazy part yet. In Texas, she convinces Eric to let her say they are pregnant together. She's always been a very large woman, but she lost a lot of weight in prep for Brazil. So she starts putting back on the weight and posting pictures to Facebook showing her pregnancy's progress, along with photos of ultrasounds that are literally lifted from Google. She starts messaging everyone we knew in our town about her pregnancy and inviting them to baby showers. Yes, multiple, in Texas, when we all live on the East Coast. Last thing, and the best one yet, she offers to babysit one of her waitress Kawaka's infants. I know because Kawaka posted several times to her Facebook thanking her, which were immediately deleted, lest she be outed, and then posted pictures of the kid saying it's hers, which her family members all like. I can't even type anymore. This story is batshit, and she is batshit, and that's like 1/100th of the crazy shit she did in those 2 years. Last year was my first time going to a convention. This guy who carpooled with some friends I hang out with gave me the absolute creeps. He followed me around the convention hall, tried to sit next to me when I went to panels, and tried to hold my hand when I was trying to listen to a group of guys talking about man-killing robots, and said I wasn't like those other girls after calling those other girls beaches and hoes. I only met the dude less than an hour before this. 2 days later, he started to say that this was the first time he felt this way about a girl. He was 14 at the time, and how he wanted to go out with me. I ignored him, cause he was a creep. Nobody took me saying he was a creep until a few months later on our mutual friends group chat. He started posting links from 4chan that none with a functioning moral compass should ever see. Spammed the chat at 3 AM on a Monday morning saying hey Appleberry, and was generally being a total ass. He also seemed to have it out for autistic kids, because it was cool or something. I'm autistic, and while I don't care much about him being an annoying turd cause he insulted autistics, he pissed me off, because he kept posting MLP, FM born because a 12-year-old girl, in the group chat, liked the show, and so did he, for different reasons. So one day, when I actually had my phone charged, because my phone automatically logs me into Facebook, and I get like 20 messages from this dude on private, I kept on getting messages from the group. He kept posting links about autistics being stupid, or whatever. I just wanted to shut him up for like a month or something. Then I told him I was autistic. I've never seen a guy backpedal so fast. He then tried to apologize saying he didn't know and all that bull. He then said BRB killing myself, like that somehow excused sexually harassing a 12-year-old girl, waking everyone up at 3 AM with his stalker tendencies, and straight up calling those who told him to stop too sensitive. No one talks to him anymore. TLDR, creepy 4chan stalker dude sexually harasses 12-year-old on group chat, wrecks his own chances of getting with a different girl cause she saw the whole thing. Too late to the thread, but I finally have a story. So, I vaguely knew a group of emo friends as a teenager, mostly nice people, some beaches but pretty alright. I wasn't part of their group, but had this story recanted, and it is my absolute favorite. So one day one of the girls, let's call her Pearl, introduces them to her friend, who we'll be calling Nikita. Emo groups are a friendly bunch so they chat, and invite her out with them the next night. A few months later Nikita's pretty much in the group and all is going well, hooray for new friends, etc. Then one night Nikita starts crying. One of the group asks her what's wrong, and she says she's just a bit upset cause her mum's not been well. Comfort all round and much sympathy for Nikita and her poorly mum. She mentions a few more times over the next few weeks that her mum's not been well, but isn't too ridiculous with it. Then one day she turns up hysterical and sobbing that her mum's been diagnosed with cancer. Everyone's a bit shocked and do their best as 16 over 17-year-olds to reassure her. Over the next month or so she starts mentioning more and more about her mum's cancer. Folks are sympathetic, but starting to lost patience a bit. At this point she does yet another sobbing hysterical breakdown bit, and after much pandering gives in and tells them her mum's cancer is terminal. Absolute shock for everyone, but again they reassure her and do their best to help. Not 3 weeks after that, the news everyone's actually been waiting for arrives. Nikita's mum's died. She's inconsolable, can't be left alone, and so stays with the Pearl's parents for a few days, while sobbing in front of an endless stream of the group who were taking it in turns to stay and keep her mind off her tragedy. After a week or so she begins to calm down, i.e. stops sobbing every time there's a lull in conversation, and feels up to going home. Turns down offers of accompaniment and heads off to her house, maybe 1 mile away. Because everyone's worried about her, they chip in their change and buy a bunch of flowers, which one of the girls, let's call her Tonaya, offers to drop off. So off she slopes to drop off flowers for her grieving, already emo, friend, and is shaken out of her grief by the sight of a woman answering the door looking almost identical to the obituary photo she'd seen the week before. Tonaya, who's not the brightest, screams out, "You're alive." As you'd imagine, chaos ensues. Not only is the woman alive, she didn't and never had have any type of cancer. Crazy Nikita made the entire thing up. I weirdly ended up working with her years later and now have her on my Instagram due to being too awkward to mention I know how batshit she is. Okay, 2 things that are cringy as hell. First, an aunt on my dad's side seeks the congratulations of faking everyone for her daughter, who is the same age of 2 other cousins and myself. The 4 of us have always gotten along, but starting at the beginning of high school this aunt just started being a beach. It starts with her complaining about how she and her husband can't afford to send their daughter to the Catholic prep school in their town because of all the money they donate and all the money they spend on their 6 other kids' academic hobbies. This obligates my grandmother to pay the $20,000 a year tuition so this girl can go to Catholic school. All is going well for the next 4 years, but at every reunion and holiday we hear this woman brag about how her daughter is on the right path for going to an Ivy League, and how she's gonna be this fantastic lawyer, and includes her giving parenting advice to my dad and the 2 other cousins' parents about how to fix us, so we at least have a shot at being successful. Then, graduation comes, and during the spring of my senior year the entire family gets an email from this aunt saying that, because her daughter got into Chicago, she won't be giving any of the other graduating girls gifts. Their tuition is too expensive, but God forbid I'd give my nieces a gift, when I know full well my mother is gonna put my daughter through college, although she encourages that gifts for her daughter to be sent to their home. It actually came out later that she insisted our grandma to not give anyone gifts as well, so that she could save money to pay for the daughter. Fast forward another 3 years, her daughter is a faking women's studies major at faking Chicago. I can't believe she picked the most useless major at one of the most expensive undergrad schools. Let's just say my aunt isn't so braggy about that girl now, considering myself and another cousin, one of the girls who is my age, are about to take the MCAT for med school. Second, I have this friend on Facebook who honestly thinks she is gonna be this hotshot surgeon in a matter of a few years. We went to high school together, and people always assumed she wouldn't make it very far. Apparently she hated that, so now she posts about 15 times a day updating everyone on how much better she is than them, because she is in school and pays her own bills, and has a car, and lives on her own. I can't help but think she has forgotten that everyone she graduated with is likely in the same boat as her. First, she is unbelievably obsessed with the idea of saving money. Money is everything, or y'all don't have your priorities straight if you don't have commas in your bank account, etc. This is ironic, because she currently works at a jeweler's, just started there last week, and prior to that she was a CNA. She claims she drives an Audi, although blatantly refuses to post pictures of it when asked to. The only info she will give is that it is in a discontinued color and is cool as shit. She also claims that she is gonna move out of the country soon. This is all fine and dandy, but it seems to me, and other people I have talked to, that she can't always afford her rent or mortgage, or whatever, so she often stays at her parents' place. In addition, she makes the "I'm moving, this city sucks" claim every month or so, always changing the location of her upcoming move. She also claims that she is gonna go to medical school and be a baby doctor and save all Jaw's life one day when she finishes the degree she is working towards now. This is also fine, except she is currently working towards a diagnostic medical sonography degree at our local tech college. She won't qualify for medical school until she at least gets an bachelor's from an approved 4-year school. Oh, and lastly, she has been in remission from leukemia since 6th grade. She is no longer under chemotherapy and is relatively healthy. However, every second status she posts has some point to make about how no one here understands her cancer struggle. Every day she feels like it might be her last. Beach, you've been in remission for 10 years. Calm the fuck down. Not to mention, every selfie she posts, about 4 a day, she uses a shitty makeup app to give herself grey eyes and long as eyelashes. She says God blessed her with her beautiful wolf eyes and long lashes. Sure, whatever makes you sleep at night, honey. TLDR, my aunt is a braggy bitch about my cousin, and a 21-year-old Facebook friend thinks she is a 50-year-old billionaire. In 2nd grade, a kid got up in front of the entire class and said, "Whoever thinks I'm cool, raise their hand." Now, I would like to think it is my natural rebelliousness and anti-authority attitude that led to me not raising my hand, but it was probably because I just wanted to be cool too. Either way, I didn't raise my hand, and he got in my face and had like a tiny meltdown until a cupcake hit him in the head. Sitting a few seats down from me, cackling his ass off, was a kid with a 2-cupcake container with only 1 cupcake. This kid is now my oldest friend, 20-something years later. The other guy ultimately went to rehab way later. Bonus story, douchebag whoever thinks I'm cool guy was on my soccer team a few years later, and the following year he wasn't on the team, and he was really good, and I was curious as to why he wasn't playing. So I asked him, and he goes, "I don't play soccer anymore," in this really dramatic bullshit way that for some reason seemed super familiar. Space Jam came out that year. Kid in high school was nutters. He tried to hang himself with a lava lamp at a party we were at. Yeah, a lava lamp. Okay, more like the cord, but that's besides the point. The lamp fell on him the second he tried to do it, obviously looking for attention. He constantly would act like any interaction with any female friends meant they were in a close bond. Not true. He'd pretend he had split personality disorder and say his personalities were Spike and Angel. I roll, none of us really talk to him anymore, or even really did then. This was 16 some years ago now. He had been a friend on FB, but I deleted him because I was sick of his sophomoric bullshit. He was invited to a wedding that our group was all at, and he kept following me around and asking why I unfriended him and how it hurt his soul. Then he started telling me about all the beautiful things that our friendship had and kept trying to pet my baby. When I told him to fuck off, he left me alone at least. Later on I heard that he kept hassling my husband to ask why I unfriended him, which husband told him to get over it. Apparently he was doing this to everyone that night, following them around, whining, acting like he was gonna go drown himself in the lake outside of the reception. He's 35 years old and still acts like a 15-year-old dipshit. My sister's good friend needs to be the center of attention. When she was still a virgin, she'd go around telling people she was pregnant anytime she put on any weight. She's done everything from attempt suicide, pretend to attempt suicide, threaten to attempt suicide, take her son to the hospital for everything, to feign symptoms of various diseases. She's tried convincing herself and others that she has lupus. My sister has been with her at appointments where doctors told her it wasn't lupus. Whenever a doctor told her something she didn't want to hear, she'd just switch doctors. She got a lupus tattoo. She'd post on Facebook about how coping with lupus was so hard and what a trooper she is. She was committed for observation after attempting suicide again, and when she was out she posted about how she had spent a few days in the hospital because of lupus. One night her son had a 104 plus fever. Everyone was worried about him and taking care of him and ignoring her. So the girl started pretending she had pain all over and claimed her fingers were swollen. They weren't. My sister was there so that an ambulance would come for her and she could be the center of attention again. My sister was friends with this girl since elementary school and feels like she needs to stay friends with this girl because she is worried about the well-being of the friend's son. I knew this girl named Kimberly. She made every tragedy about her. One example, a level 6.4 earthquake hit our area. Me, her, and 2 other friends were out to dinner together while it happened. The news said the injury and death count 13 dead and 37 injured. My friend Brian said I'm glad nothing happened to us. Kimberly then pipes up, oh my god. I could have died. At least it wasn't that bad. I'm fine. I say, what about the people who are dead or injured? What about us? Do you only care for yourself? She said I'm gonna post something on Facebook and Instagram. Here's what she posted on Facebook. Her exact words: an earthquake just hit. I broke my foot trying to escape my house. Send your support for everyone who got injured. Faking really? Here's what she put on Instagram. Insert selfie. All my stuff broke. Please send support for everyone whose lives were ruined by this tragedy. Why? So I know I'm late to this, but a girl I knew from college was really broken up about the Syrian civil war when it started, and for good reason. She's Syrian and still had family back home. What was weird was that for every genuine post she would drown her Facebook in dozens of other posts talking about how great of an activist she was for all of her cardboard signs and the events she attended. One day, she basically posted something along the lines of, you're not a true activist until you do your work for other people's benefit and don't expect praise. Me, being a man who's waging a personal war against passive aggression, responded with, isn't posting stuff like this the exact opposite of what an activist would do then? And like 3 people agreed with me before she took it down, messaged me privately to tell me what a horrible, uncaring person I am, and then tell me she's going to remove me from her friends list before doing so. Look dude, I'm Palestinian. I get it. I'm probably never going to see my family's homeland because most of it was taken over and their house happened to be on the wrong side of Jerusalem, but I don't feel the need to let everyone know how I feel about everything going on in the world while bad-mouthing other people's ways of dealing with it. You're not an activist at that point, you're an asshole. Not really more cringeworthy than downright faking irritating. My cousin always loves to make himself seem like some sort of hero. Whatever small minor thing he does, he wants acknowledgement and wants to be the alpha male of the group. For instance, we all went to a wedding for another cousin. My sister gets faking sheet-faced drunk and can't even walk. Her boyfriend and I let her rest her arms on us as we attempt to help her walk to the hotel room they're in. He interjects and says, stop it guys, let me take care of this, I got her. As if we were doing something wrong. I thought we were doing okay. He has a way more awkward time than us bringing her along. Picture what it would be like to awkwardly drag a boxing heavy bag across a hotel, and you would picture how he carried her, getting annoyed because her drunk ass could barely walk. The next day, I'm feeling slightly hungover, but I'm okay despite drinking a shit ton of booze the night before. Everybody asks me how I'm feeling, and I tell them that I'm okay given the circumstances. He immediately interjects and says yeah, because I told him to drink water. I was already drinking water to begin with before he told me to do so, and it was more of a passing comment from him more than anything. He just got into golf and played a couple of rounds with an uncle of ours who's been golfing for a long time. I say, that's cool that you're golfing with Uncle Dean. I'm sure he's teaching you a couple things. He says a little bit. I actually hit the ball farther than him a couple times. He never wants to give anybody else but himself full props. And he'll make fun of me for being a doofus, but get super faking defensive when I throw a slight verbal jab at him. I have to always walk around eggshells with him, and it's faking annoying. Holy goddamn shit, it's annoying, and if I ever tell him this, he'll just get faking pissed off, but he still always wants to hang out with me, and god admit, I feel imprisoned sometimes. I actually did the cringeworthy act. I was at work practicing welding, which I had done in my own time and for upwards of 6 months, but my supervisor didn't give a rat's as how decent the welds were or how well I was progressing. He much rather teaching his friends, some who had been there for a few weeks and didn't know the first thing about welding. He didn't even want to do it. Anyway, I was in my lunch break doing some welds when I finished 3 or 4 pristine welds and thought it would be a marvelous idea to discreetly show my boss. So I placed them on his desk, finished packing up, and head back to my area as a bell sounded. As I walked back, I noticed all of the people in the area were ogling my works of art. I casually give out a "what's this? New guy is doing well," and every single person agreed, even the faking boss. I wait for the boss to be alone so I could see if he wanted me to start welding for him. He replied with "soon," and then told me to sweep the floor. One of the most depressing, soul-crushing experiences of my working life. The next day I didn't even bother practicing. I didn't care in the slightest anymore, and since that day I have only done as I'm told, nothing less and certainly nothing more. TLDR wanted to impress my boss at work by showing him my hard work and dedication. Swept the floor instead. Reading these made me remember a great one. Okay, so I'm 18 and at a house party. There's this girl that always goes to this recurring party pretty often who I will call Sissy. Sissy was one of those girls that were really desperate for male attention, and so she tried way too hard, especially with guys already in a relationship. This was extra weird because she had a boyfriend, Sergio. It was kind of clear to everyone else he was some sort of placeholder for her, but whatever. At this particular party, Sissy learns I've started dating Mike since we last hung out, and Mike's here at the party with me. Sissy decided she likes Mike and tries to grab his attention all night in front of clueless Sergio too. Poor guy, Mike wasn't returning any of this, and I didn't really give a shit. So to up the attention level, she starts having a panic attack. She specifically starts this in the kitchen the second Mike walks in to grab a beer so he would take care of her. So she's doing the clearly fake hyperventilating and asking Mike to walk her to the guest room and lay down with her, and he's just trying to calm her down on the couch. So I come in and get Sergio, and she just gets worse, hanging off of Mike and looking like she's going to pass out. Someone tells her to think of something peaceful. It's a bunch of drunk 18-year-olds. It was dumb, and she dramatically yells Sergio a bunch of times, really cringy, and fake collapses on Mike. At this point Mike and I are pretty fed up. She's been at this for almost an hour, and despite all the attention she's now getting, she doesn't seem to be slowing down. So I got out a phone and told her if she's this bad off she needs to see a doctor. I'm calling an ambulance. She immediately comes to, still hanging off Mike, and says, "Oh, it's okay, I just need to stay here, Mike's helping me." So Mike joins in. "No sweetie, something could be really wrong, and we care about you. We are dialing 911 right now, don't you worry." And once she saw everyone was down with this plan, what do you know? Her panic attack instantly went away, and she was totally fine, guys. It was a miracle. Yay. She wasn't allowed back after that. Many years ago I was hired to play music for a wedding. At some point the parents of this cute little kid come up to me with a tape they want me to play, while their son sings along to it on stage. I went along with it and played the song, while this 5-year-old mumbles through the song and can only kind of get the words to the chorus a little bit right. Can't remember the song, but it was a country tune, and the one line I remember was, "And I'm her man." When the kid sang that one line, he'd make an exaggerated motion pointing to himself with his thumb. Everyone politely claps at the end, while his parents are looking at everybody to make sure everyone is acknowledging just how adorable this talentless turt is. Then the parents came back and requested that I play the song again. I tried to dissuade them, but they pressured me, and, being 18 years old, I didn't have the spine to back down, so here we are again, watching the steaming pile of crap mumble his way through this song nobody knows. Afterward, the brother of the bride told me not to play any more songs for this family, and I told him I understood. Minutes later, these proud parents of an oyster fatched are asking me to play another song so they can watch their relatives feign interest. I told them no more, and when they protested, the bride's brother came to my rescue, only to be punched out by the kid's father. Great wedding. It wasn't enough your lackluster cum stain couldn't keep the audience entertained, but you throw a punch at your own nephew? I still got paid very generously. I have this girl on FB that is with a new guy every week that doesn't pay her enough attention. Here are some FB quotes for your viewing pleasure. I feel so unbelievably lonely and like so unimportant. It's kinda ridiculous. Her mom was the only like and comment. My personal favorite. I hate when people sit there and complain and say shit about me when I say things are in pain. Like all the issues I have. So fucking sorry. You don't need to say you're always complaining or you have so many issues. I got that. There's always something wrong with me. I can't help it. So when I say something hurts, then don't say shit. You don't even know. Back to how it used to be. The second choice. So I decided to just let everybody know how I'm feeling. Completely unwanted by everyone close to me. All my friends are drifting away. I'm losing everyone all in the same week. And this is where most of you will say I'm here for you, but the truth is, no matter how many people will say that, I will still feel alone. Plus many others. It's Notice Me EX1000. Some guy on one of my sports teams in high school once made up a fake girlfriend and took it way too far. The thing was, though, that this guy was not only a huge asshole, but, well, also extremely overweight and just generally unattractive. Physically. Yes, I know that looks are relative, weight does not determine attractiveness, and that it's shallow to not date someone just because of how they look, but come on, this was high school. Anyway, this girl that he claimed to be dating looked like a 26-year-old porn star. He'd show all of us selfies that she allegedly sent him, but that he obviously just pulled off of Google somewhere, of her posing in expensive lingerie. You could only see her face clearly in one of the pictures, so there was no way of knowing if they were even all of the same person. Whenever we asked to meet her, he would say he'd invite her to our team's next match, and then when the day would come, he'd make up some new excuse each time as to why she wasn't there. Oftentimes he would say her family went on a last-minute vacation, even though he claimed she was also a high schooler, and it was the middle of March. We asked if she had a Facebook, and he said her parents wouldn't let her. We asked what her name was, and he said her parents asked him not to tell people. Finally, at the end of the season, he told us that she was sent to a rehab in another state for anorexia, so we wouldn't ever get to meet her. The worst part of all of this is that I knew some girls at school that liked this guy, so he wasn't doing it just because he felt self-conscious for not being able to find a girlfriend or something. Long story short, this guy was just a pompous ass who desperately wanted everyone to be jealous of him, but just made himself into an even bigger ass in the process of trying. I work as a child and adolescent outpatient therapist. You would think I would have cringy teenager stories for this thread. I mean, I do, but by far the most cringeworthy to me are the parents who are dying for the validation of their children. The cool parents, but taken to ridiculous extremes that usually end up being reported as abuse. Off the top of my head, parents who provide illegal substances for their children. One thing to give your 17-year-old a beer, but I had two cases stick out. One family regularly gave their young child, for instance under 10, vodka, and one father shared cocaine with his early teens child. One parent who would set up their child with friends, for instance setting up a young teen with a 30 to 40-year-old with the intention of a sexual relationship. This was an odd case. I genuinely think the parent was not sex trafficking and was honestly just a really shitty parent who had no idea how to be a parent and instead forced adult roles on their child until they could make them appear. The last is the opposite of the above and was less abhorrent but more common. The parent who acted like a goddamn child to connect. There was the obvious stuff, dressing very inappropriately, using odd slang, etc. A 40-year-old white woman saying things are bougie or on fleek is odd, especially if she's dressed like she plundered the stripper Halloween costume bin. While this was certainly cringy, there were always a few that took it a bit too far, partying with their kids, flirting with their friends, etc. I try not to judge any of my clients, but I, and any other clinician, would be lying if I said I had no reaction to this stuff. Used to be friends with / live with this dude who did a ton of subtle shit for retention. His girlfriend broke up with him, and he went out and slept with a few girls almost right away. Posted on Twitter something like, in the month since girlfriend and I broke up, I have yet to be comfortable sleeping with anyone, and my ex is already in love. Also posted a story on Twitter about how he climbed onto a roof from a fence in order to get our friends Clubhouse gym key our friend said we could use. The story is 100% true. Except I was the one who climbed the roof and got the key. He ended his tweet with something like #DEDICATION. I don't have a Twitter, so I had no outlet to call him out on it. He made a point to always carry $100 bills on him, even though he didn't have that much money. He always exchanged his tip money from the restaurant he worked at to as many $100 bills as he could. I was at a restaurant with him and two of my lady friends, and when the check was on its way over, he took a $100 out of his wallet and put it casually in front of him, so it was clear he had it. When our server came with the check, he paid with his card. I can go on for days about this dude. Most of it would be stories of him being a totally different person around his close friends / roommates compared to new people who didn't know him as well. When I was a junior in high school, I was on the football team. There was this senior on the squad, who we will call Chris. Something was wrong with Chris. People would goad him into doing these ridiculous things that had no benefit to him and usually did harm. He would do them repeatedly, no matter how many times he got hurt or humiliated. It was surreal. All he was ever offered was a modicum of attention. For that attention he would do almost anything. Now back to our story. Some of the other seniors on the squad convinced Chris that it would really boost team morale and really make Coach, who Chris worshipped and quoted like Christ himself, very happy if Chris would take handoffs and run full speed into the side of a shed. I'm not kidding, he would get 20 to 50 feet of running room and hit the side of that shed like a 140-pound freight train. I tell you, it sounds stupid, but the first time that kid slammed into the side of that shed, it was the funniest thing I have ever seen. It wasn't a wooden shed. It was one of those aluminum sided sheds that gets hung from a steel skeletal structure, closed on 3 sides and open in the front. It was essentially a huge drum. On top of that, the bottom of the side wasn't fastened to anything, so it had a lot of flex. So when he hit the shed at full speed, it made a huge boom that could be heard for quite a distance. Then the siding would bend inwards until it bounced back with such force that it knocked him back 10 feet into a mud puddle. At that point 120 teenage boys, JV included, literally fell to the ground in fits of laughter. He would get up and do it again and again until he either knocked himself unconscious or the coaches came out of the door, signaling the beginning of practice. This went on for several days until someone made them stop. I can't remember who stopped it. By the end, not only was the entire JV and varsity squads having an hysterical fit, for 10 minutes before every practice, we had been joined by the soccer team, JV and varsity, boys and girls, the tennis team, some other sports and 20 non-athlete bystanders. People literally could not stay standing due to hysterical laughter. Ready, set, hut hut, and Chris would run a 28 sweep, a football play, and boom slam into the side of a shed at full speed. I have never seen anything that ridiculous before or since. As an added bonus, we found out years later that the coaches would all sneak around to a door that they could peek out of and watch the whole thing while dying laughing. It wasn't until one of our own became a teacher a few years later that we were blessed with that gem. I'm pretty sure the coaches were the ones that stopped it, but I can't remember exactly. High school was 20 plus years ago. I wonder whatever happened to that guy. I'll keep up with the wedding theme. My best friend from college was getting married about 16 years ago. She had 5 bridesmaids, myself included. She had picked out all of the dresses for us, and the color and sizes were set. I lived a few states away, so I never did a fitting and I trusted her judgment. When we all met for the rehearsal, one of her bridesmaids, I will call her Lisa, who I did not really know, tried on her dress, which was 1 size up from mine. This made sense, since she was taller than me, making her bones just 1 size bigger. Nothing to be ashamed of. It looked good, and it fit her correctly, but she was trying to say that it was too big. She then wanted to try my dress on. My friend and I were looking at each other confused. Lisa then came out from changing, feigning that the bigger one was mine, and my friend made a mistake, which was beyond ridiculous. The bigger one was longer, as well as roomier. I'm 5 feet 1 inch. It is mostly guys on this forum, so I will explain quickly. These kinds of dresses are not the type that stretch. The material is really thick with no give. The dress was ridiculously tight on her. Not tight in a good sexy way, which was what she was going for. It was squeezing her so much that she could barely turn without it looking like it would bust the zipper. In fact, we had to push the seam together so the zipper would completely zip. My friend told her that there was nothing that could be done. It was the night before the wedding and she could not make changes. She was already nervous and ridiculous dress BS should not have been something she had to deal with. Very tactfully, it had been decided that Lisa would take the dress that fit her. The day of the wedding, we were rushing around. I was searching all over for my dress, but the only one left hanging up was Lisa's. Come to find out, she had stolen mine the night before, when we had been told to hang them all up on one door to save time. It was not like I cared so much about how I looked, but I was just shaking my head, pissed off that she was being so sickeningly shallow and wasting precious time that we needed. Not to mention the glaring obviousness that this was not about how she looked, but maybe the bride. Dumbass. She continued to make a fool out of herself to try to get attention from the groomsman that she had to walk with during the ceremony. He didn't even notice her. She practically dove for the bouquet when it was tossed. She acted like some idiot in a comedy. I caught it, and I did not really care either way. It just was projected towards me at top speed and almost hit me in the face. I have never been married, and if/when I do, it will not be one of these ceremonies, for obvious reasons. This doesn't necessarily compare to earlier posts, but really shows the underbelly of the human race. A wedding is planned and supposed to be celebration for your friend or friends. You usually have a year before the actual date happens. At that point, you have all of the time in the world to get over your insecurities and realize that it is about the people getting married, not you. The best consolation was that my friend and her awesome husband did have a great day and are still together now. Went on a ski trip in college with the ski and board club. This club was notorious for its extracurricular activities, but not all students knew this, especially transfers and freshmen. Well, we had just gotten settled into where we were staying and started breaking out all goodies. There was this girl on the trip. I think she was an exchange student from Israel, and I don't think I had ever met a more sheltered person in my life. She knew nothing of the real world, and while being very nice was also very off-putting. Anyway, I'm twisting up a blunt, and while I'm breaking up the buds she looks over at me and asks what I have in my hands. Kind of odd, but I suppose there are students who wouldn't know what weed is, so I tell her it's marijuana, and I'm rolling it into a tobacco leaf. She just responds, oh, maybe a little wide-eyed. One of my friends decided to also break out a couple lines of blow, and proceeds to do so, and sure enough the girl asked what that white powder was. This one really surprised me. Even if you had never done coke, there are so many pop culture references about it that you should be able to infer. I'm pretty sure she didn't try any drugs that night and may have smoked a little weed the next day. On the third night, one of my other friends reveals he brought an ounce of mushrooms and asked if anyone wanted to trip. Most of us were like hell yeah, including this girl. Now my friend was more interested in making a buck, and no one else seemed to care about stopping her. Looks like I had to be the voice of reason, which is saying a lot. So I told her that mushrooms aren't a drug you just want to dive into taking, especially if you didn't even really know what drugs were just a few days prior, but she had made up her mind. She told me that I didn't know her life, and she had things from her past that she wanted to forget. What the fuck? At this point I'm like, this is definitely not the drug for that, you are making a huge mistake. But she did it anyway. I had a great trip, and a few hours into it, I remember that she had taken about an 1/8 and had disappeared shortly after. I went looking around for her and find her and this other weird kid, who I suspect had a thing for her and was attempting to care for her, in a bedroom. This girl is rocking back and forth giggling maniacally while chanting something in Hebrew. She looks over at me and starts shrieking like some sort of predatory creature from your nightmares, so I naturally start yelling back incoherently at the top of my lungs back at her, because that makes total sense, right? Well, my tripping brain thought it was at the time. So this guy taking care of her tries to get all up in my sheet, like all of this was my fault, and he was going to make me leave. I laughed at him and probably said some slightly mean things to him before I walked out, found my friends, and went swimming in the indoor pool. Apparently the rest of her trip wasn't much better from the minute of it that I witnessed, but she did end up winning trip MVP, so there is that. TLDR, very sheltered Israeli girl trips balls days after discovering what drugs are, with very little to no understanding of their effects. Results were as you might expect. Guy in my former SWG guild had a fling with a girl on WoW that had just gotten back from a fling with someone else on WoW. It was no secret at all, and by that time fairly apparent, that the woman was not completely stable emotionally. However, this dude was pretty delusional and often posted pictures on the Illidan server forums of him drunk in bars throwing out the shocker. He made it really obvious that he thought he was a faking badass for being able to pull this off, as he let me know numerous times. As it turns out, the girl actually acted exactly like herself while at his house. Dude lost his temper that the floozy that visited him from World of Warcraft was on the phone with another dude while in his house. Years later, someone from a rival horde guild with a fetish for sluts convinced the same girl to fly out to his place for a sexcapade, which led the guy that tossed the shocker to post some nude photos of the girl on a public forum to shame her for having sex with a rival. He got lots of attention from it, at least on the internet side he was getting lots of virtual high fives from nearly every active user on the forum. His employers were less enthused. Later on, when the US started passing revenge-born laws, they took the forum down completely to avoid having to deal with the fallout associated to something now highly illegal. This probably won't get seen, but I actually have something to contribute for once. This kid Tommy was the type of kid, like a lot of others in this thread, who would do anything for attention. Well, it was my buddy Nate's day, so Tommy decides he's going to take a marine shot and let Nate be the one to kick him. Two things: a marine shot consists of squeezing lime into your eye, snorting a line of salt, taking a shot of tequila, and getting kicked in the nuts. Other thing was Nate is a big fucking guy and he really hated Tommy. So as these things play out, Tommy makes a massive ordeal out of it and makes sure he had everyone in the full apartment's attention. He proceeds to do all that dumb shit and all of a sudden it's Nate's turn for the kick. This motherfucker looked like a young kid on Christmas about to open that big gift he's been waiting on all month. Nate practically runs across the apt and lifts Tommy up off the ground with this kick. Simultaneous cringe from everyone in the apartment. Tommy ends up in the fetal position on the floor in a back room for the rest of the night, only to have to wake up and go to the hospital the next day for an orange-sized testicle. It was pretty sad and painful to watch, but he asked for it, so not much sympathy from me tbh. Sorry for shitty formatting, I'm on mobile. My brother has done the I did something come look at me thing quite a few times. The one time that comes to mind is when we were young. We were assigned house cleaning duties on Saturdays. So one Saturday, while vacuuming his room, all of a sudden we hear him screaming for help. So my sister and I walk into his room, and he has the vacuum wrapped all around him, and he fell so perfectly that he fell between the space of his nightstand and bed that he had not hit his head. Mind you, the space is only big enough to fit an 8-year-old head, and falling in the space perfectly without hitting his head would be a miracle. So we walk in, and he tries to explain what happened. Meanwhile, we both know he did it on purpose for attention, as well as falling perfectly in the small space. Miraculously, the vacuum was not running at all, so my sister and I listen to his tale of woe and begs us to help him up. Being the kind souls we are, we tell him that if he can get into it, he can get himself out, and we left him for about an hour until my mom realized what had happened. We were scolded, but she knew why we had tortured him. I have more stories of my little bro being an attention-seeking beach, so let me know if you all want more. Now I look back at it, my old friend in high school was cringeworthy as fuck, dude. NGL, we had this 8/10ths teacher teach us for 1 year, and my friend had the biggest boner for her. He began by stressing exactly to me how she was so nice to him specifically, and then grew into his sexual fantasies with me, his quiet only friend. He got so descriptive after a few months, he'd talk about it constantly. It got to the weird point where he began showing me his boner and how long it was for her and how rock-hard it was. He'd stay after every English lesson, and Motherfucker actually began getting lucky. For some fuck of reason, he got her to hug her when he left. He'd literally crab walk to the bus, stop and release his boner size upon me through the thick of his jeans. Soon she left, and he says the most stupidest shit. He tells everyone he and her had great sex, like kissing, and telling how much they loved each other, that they released their feelings, and he went to her house every day without fail, just to kiss her and fuck her. She loved me. Soon the whole school knew, and he actually carried the sheet on, and he actually went through the effort to make a Facebook account, and he photoshopped the same one image that was in the school office, with him in every photo. He got better over time though, started to add Faye Reagan and other redheads to his pics, just to keep the illusion up, and it was obvious as shit. She didn't even look the same. Soon, by grade 12, everyone knew his sheet and the Motherfucker still denied it. One day, apparently she came in and visited every classroom and was caught hiding in the toilets on the far side of the school for the whole day, missing every lesson, till apparently the headmaster came with 5 teachers to get him out, and rumors say he was crying the shit out of his eyes. She left before that, and he just came back to class and didn't look at anybody that day as well, didn't even speak to me at the bus. Granted, I soon lost interest in being his friend when he got me in trouble for doing sneaky shit with him. The one that always makes me cringe. I was dating this girl for about 8 months, and she had a best friend who had been trying to get with her for maybe 2 years at this point. I met her a year into their friendship/zone and proceeded to step all over this guy's toes. After a while we fell in love, etc. You can imagine how this goes as he gets more and more desperate to get her attention. I never saw him as a threat because he was the I think I'm alpha, but I'm really beta as fact types. Anyway, it's about 9 degrees outside in the middle of a blizzard, and we all just went to see a movie, and me and her and him, and like 4 other people are in a car, and he just gets out, takes his shirt off, and yells "race ya" to the end at me. He meant the parking lot shirtless, in 9-degree weather, and I was like nah, it's way too cold for that shit. So he goes sprinting off to the end of the parking lot like a faking moron. I pull the car up there ahead of him, and he gets to it, and gets in, and I say, "What took ya so long?" I cringe for him a lot. Me and the girl broke up. I didn't want to marry her at all. Now her and cringe dude are engaged. I told her he was probably her best bet after I broke up with her, and she ran with it. Their relationship makes total sense, and as far as I can tell he's obsessed with her. I just wonder how he feels knowing I was the dude that turned her down. Maybe happy, I don't know. I'm happy for them though, Finn. So we were out drinking with some of my friend's newfound drinking buddies over the web. Apparently one reason why he asked me to come was because some girl over the web liked him, and although he denies her, the girl wouldn't believe him, so she invited us for a drink. I was prepared for the worst. I have set my alarm just 2 hours before going in and set its tone to my call tone, message myself with my disposable phone to make a fake message conversation with my friend's mum in case she wants proof I'm the ultimate backup. So during our time drinking with them, she suddenly went hysteric, like she had a hard time breathing, crying, then fainted, though I notice that her mouth was slightly twitching when she fainted, and my best bud didn't realize it and panic. While my buddy goes and grabs some water, her friends told us she's just acting to get him to bed, and my buddy was like pretending. And suddenly she stood up, goes to the bathroom, and did a vomiting sound, though no gurgly vomit was heard. During that awkward moment her friend apologized on her behalf, so we still continued drinking, and then she suddenly tried confessing to him, but she was dumped fast before she could say let's continue drinking. But my friend felt bad, so he tried explaining to her that he already had someone, but the girl insisted that he should dump her, and she also insulted her. Being a good friend I am, my alarm finally clicked in, and I picked it up like it was an important call. I gave it the phone to him, and did my best to inform him that it's just an alarm and try to play along, and he did. And that's how we ended the night, though it was already 1:50 AM that time. After that she apologized on insulting his girl and that on how she acted like a bitch. In the end they still become friends in Facebook. Note, he is dating my cousin. There's this one guy in a Japanese history class I'm taking right now who's constantly trying to show off his knowledge. He'll always come to class early and start to strike up a conversation with the professor about something he's doing, which is usually some Japanese job program he's been applying for, or his plans to work as a manga artist in Japan, some general news, or the state of the economy in Japan. He'll always make sure he's loud enough for everyone to clearly hear his conversations though. Even if the professor starts the class, he'll make sure to finish his sentence, even if that means talking at the same time as the professor saying, "Hey guys, today we are talking about XXX." He always sits in the front row of the class. In class, if we ever covered a topic he's aware of, he'll immediately interrupt anyone, even the professor, to share his knowledge. In discussions he will always somehow find a way to link it to something he knows and drag it off topic. We have a quota of discussions we need to fulfill for this semester, and when the professor is talking to us about how many of us need to do all the discussions coming up, he actually interrupted the professor to ask if it was okay that he did more than the required amount, even including how many he did. What I really don't understand is that if the class ever ran long, 2 to 3 minutes at most, he'll start loudly packing and stand up and stare at the professor. I try to respect everyone I come across in my classes, but this guy has been by far the worst. He basically comes in and tries to get approval from everyone while not giving anyone else any respect. Last I heard he was planning to go to Japan, but I wonder if he'll survive anywhere in Asia with that kind of behavior. My cousin does this a surprising amount. We are basically the same age, so I used to hang around with her a fair amount. I'm currently in high school, but in primary school she was cool to be around and great to play board games / PS2 games with. But now that she is in high school, the popular group has drafted her, and now she is a total airhead. Now for the examples, she waits until 8:30 to post anything on any social network, so that it gets the most exposure possible. This includes an instance when she missed it thanks to a particularly funny joke I told brushes of Lapples, and she waited for the next day to post it. She was really pissed at one of her 19 years old friends. Cousin is 17 because she had not gotten her P plates yet, the reason she would be able to drive me to my friend's house. She really enjoys taking the piss out of people, myself included, which we are all cool with, and we do it to each other. It's all in good fun, but when we do it to her she slumps down all pissed off and refuses to talk to anyone for the rest of the school bus trip, about an hour, unless we tell her how great she is right after. If anyone has any suggestions for what to do, then that would be helpful. But that is my experience. A cousin, on my mother's side, had the first baby out of all of my siblings and cousins from my 2 uncles. We're all within a 3-year span, so we are relatively close, and this baby being the first out of our group was a big deal, as well as the baby being my maternal grandfather's first great-grandchild. Her mom, an ex-aunt, is seriously the most self-centered and manipulative person. She cheated on my uncle for years and has been with this guy for 9 years now, only has been divorced from my uncle for 6. Anyway, the guy and my ex-aunt hadn't talked about marriage at all until my cousin's now fiance bought a ring that he could afford, so it ended up being very simple and small. Well, the mom, not liking the attention now on her daughter, talks her boyfriend into getting a massive 1-carat engagement ring, taking out a loan to pay for it. Shitty, but we are all not very surprised. However, my cousin's due date was on December 6, 2014. Her mom hadn't said anything about wedding dates or anything, but when the due date started getting closer and my cousin once again started getting attention over her mother, my ex-aunt decides to go and have a courthouse wedding on December 5th. All because she wanted attention over her own grandchild. And mind you, she's been with this guy for 9 years. She could have waited until after her grandchild was born. She's been like this for years. We are not even very shocked by her anymore. first year of high school and my parents were in the middle of a separation, and the same week mum announced she was moving out. Our dog died. So I come to school in tears and tell my friends and my teachers. I get a lot of sympathy. Teachers hold a prayer session. Blah blah blah. Literally the next day this chick who kind of hung around the group but did not have one of her own announced that she had cancer. Of course we were upset for her and supportive. Word got around the school. Teachers prayed for her. Everyone gave her special treatment. She got out of sport classes, did not have to put assignments in, etc. When we asked when her hair would start falling out and when she would lose weight, she said it's not that type of cancer. We did not know any better. She carried on with the charade for years, always pulling the cancer card when grilled, like it was an untouchable subject. It got to the point where we kinda figured out it was fake and ignored her. Not sure why it did not get back to her parents, but she managed to keep anyone from formally calling her bluff. Until one day one of the mums saw her and her mum in the shops and gave her sympathy for having cancer, which of course made her mother got what the fuck. It caused quite a stir from all reports. It finally got out that it was all a fake and she was torn apart by everyone so badly that she ended up leaving the school soon after. As far as I can tell, a day of everyone feeling sorry for me was what caused the whole thing to happen. Kind of funny really. A girl I'm acquainted with claims to have PTSD, anxiety, schizophrenia, OCD, and BPD. As someone who has anxiety and OCD, she obviously doesn't have any of these things. Some of her symptoms include talking to imaginary people, but they're all super edgy like the Grim Reaper or anime characters. Pretending to see stupid shit and making a big deal about it, making a huge show about running away in the middle of a group conversation due to her social anxiety disorder, claiming that people need to catch her and calm her down, reorganize her backpack leisurely, claim OCD, pretend she cannot step on any tile cracks due to her OCD. I have seen her step on cracks all the time when she's not telling everyone about it, pretending to have flashbacks to her mom abusing her. But it's the most stereotypically cinematic acting I've ever seen. Honestly, there's definitely some shit wrong with her, but it's not any of the stuff she says. This girl was about 2 years under me in high school. She said that she had some type of cancer that she was going to die from by the end of the year. Eventually her boyfriend died. She found out after he died that she was pregnant. She told me to not talk about it with her mom because it upsets her. She went out partying with a friend one night and had a miscarriage. She also got some kind of medical thing done to help her with her cancer. It was like a bone marrow transplant or something over the course of one weekend. Funny enough, that weekend my dad was watching TV and they were showing the same procedure she went through. She should have been in the hospital for over a week. She would call me in the middle of the night during a school night because she wanted to talk. If I didn't answer, she got her gullible to text me saying she really needed me. I knew this was fake from the beginning because if she was dying I at least wouldn't be in school. Her boyfriend was a real guy that did die, but highly doubt that was her boyfriend. No one would want to bang her. She always had some kind of problem going on. I ended up seeing her a year later after I graduated. Still alive, fat, gross, and surprised to see me. My friends and I have a Facebook group where we chat up all things gaming, or more so, give each other shit relentlessly. We have a younger individual in our group whom I've known since he was 13. He's 20 now. Most of the group ranges from 30 to 35 years old, so to us he's a kid, especially to me. The other day he was trying his hand at being witty, and I jokingly replied back about kids these days being so mean. Boy, did this ignite a furious reaction. He clearly stated he was an adult. I knew where this was going and simply told him, "You'll always be a kid in our eyes." And then it happened. I'm married. I have a 2-year-old. He accidentally got his girl pregnant when they were both 17. I work 9 hours a day 6 days a week. We all had a good laugh and told him how those things don't necessarily define an adult. That because we're all older and some of us had known him since he was a baby and or a teenager, that he'd always be a kid in our eyes even as he gets older. And in a moment of anger from being called a kid and adoringly laughed over due to his temper tantrum of being an adult, he tells me, "You're right, Red, it's in bed too. You are older. Much older." Oh sweetie, cutie, baby pie, child friend of mine, and I replied back, yes I am. Old enough to legally walk into a bar. He made a quick reference that women aren't hot after they have a kid and then vanished. I have a coworker who pretends to be a smoker just to fit in with some of the smokers on breaks. In general he's an extremely annoying person anyway and tries too hard to get everyone to like him, but watching him attempt to smoke is just painful. I don't smoke, but I have no problem sitting with coworkers who do. The first few months he worked here I never once saw him smoke, yet suddenly out of the blue he claimed to be a smoker. The first time I saw him light up a cigarette he didn't even know how to light it. He held the cigarette 3 feet away from his face, like it was a stick of dynamite, and had no idea how to use a standard big lighter. Then there's the way he smokes. He doesn't even inhale. He sucks the smoke into his mouth, puffs out his cheeks, swishes the smoke around for a second, then immediately expels it in an incredibly dramatic way. There's no inhalation at all. He doesn't even hold the cigarette in a way which anyone who has ever smoked would hold a cigarette. I can't really explain it, but it's like he suddenly forgets how to use his fingers. Then there's how every time he smokes he can't shut up about it. People can't believe that I'm a smoker. People are always shocked to learn that I'm a smoker. Yeah, I love smoking so much. I bet you never guessed I was a smoker. I know smoking is bad for me, but I just love it so much. If he's such a huge fan of smoking, then why does he never even have his own cigarettes? He just bums them from everyone else. If I smoked I would be pissed at him constantly asking me for cigarettes only to basically waste them. This is the kind of shit I'd expect from a 15-year-old trying to impress their friends, but this guy's almost 30. Rant time. Harry Potter book release. Don't worry, no spoilers. Showed up at 7 in full costume for a 9 am release. Devoted? No. I was one of the few to dress up, and I was the best dressed. I'm not being vain. I honestly had the most detailed and accurate costume there. We were told in line that the best dressed person in line gets to open the box and have the first Half-Blood Prince book. So, I'm a shoo-in, aren't I? Wrong. Faking Moo brings her bratty sprog in at 8:59 am dressed in a generic mart cape with stars and glitter, and faking gaudy blah. Twig for a wand. OMG Whittle Precious so cute. OMG you can open the box and have this book you can't read and fawning. Blatant breederism etc. The faking kid won't even remember this. The box opening was mine. I wouldn't have minded if someone had said oh look sass, you are best dressed, but would you mind if this landmine amputee opened the box instead? I would have said absolutely no problem. Go for it. But no. Faking crotch dropping gets the honor. I'm furious. On principle of course, not out of any sense of entitlement. Well yes, entitlement also. But I worked for it. I deserved it. I made an effort. I spent money making an effort. I showed up early. I will remember and treasure this event forever and eternity. And I'm passed over for an ugly little brat with a sparkly tie. Woo faking woo. I didn't stab her in the eye with my wand. I wanted to. I talked about doing so very faking loudly. I was going to eviscerate her mother with the cover of my brand new copy. I faking hate breeders and child lovers. Faking Geo to hell. I'm so pissed about this. Sorry. It's just that in 10 years time, this kid won't remember what she was doing on July 16, 2005. In 10 years time, I will be remembering how I was deprived of this nerdly honor by an opportunistic fact breeder and her sheetling. I'm hurt. All my life, nothing has gotten to me more than being deliberately ignored or passed over. Honestly, that's the sort of thing that can make me cry in public, or key your car, or viciously murder you and your family in the heat of frustration and never-ending denial. Congratulations breeders, you win. Edited to add, to all of you who are calling me immature etc. I'd like to add that you make a very good point, but have you considered geofac yourself? If you're so and all retentive, go back to the other community and go on with your breeder humping. Also, to the person who submitted this to fandom_wunk, I seriously, no sarcasm, thank you. I've always wanted to be there.